Delimitation basically put in front of us two things to pick from. One is to uphold democracy and its principle. Another is to uphold diversity and its concerns. Delimitation actually expects us to prioritize one over the other between democracy and diversity. That only after 2026, whenever we get a census, then delimitation exercise will be performed. This 76 freeze was imposed by union government not because there was a massive demand for it. It is no longer the choice of union government. Rather, government at the union level is receiving a very strong opposition from the government in the southern states. Hello everyone, my name is Himanshu Kishore and I'm a faculty here at VisionIAS. I teach polity and governance as well as internal security. Today I am here with a topic, Delimitation 2026. Basically, delimitation is frozen until the year 2026. Hence, there are a lot of speculations around, and right now it is a most difficult question or dilemma in a way in front of our country, in front of our polity. Now, as I have written it here, the great Indian political dilemma, which basically bring us to this question, what are these dilemma with respect to delimitation? Before I explain those dilemma, let me explain the meaning of the word dilemma. Dilemma basically arise whenever we are confronted with two or more than two equally good choices. It means there are no completely right or there are no completely wrong choices, but we have to pick one. We cannot pick both. That's why it is a dilemma. Now, when it comes to delimitation, the dilemmas are actually two, and both are related to each other. First dilemma is that the last time delimitation exercise was completed, or it was conducted in its complete sense, that was in 1970s. In 1976, they imposed a temporary freeze on delimitation. It means that they said in 1976 that until 2000, and eventually it was further extended till 2026, that until 2026, we will not be having a delimitation. So now the first dilemma is that either we go for it in coming years after 2026, or we basically postpone it again. That is first dilemma. Another dilemma is that delimitation basically put in front of us two things to pick from. One is to uphold democracy and its principle. Another is to uphold diversity and its concerns. All right. Now, many of you might not be able to relate right now that how delimitation relate to or create this dilemma between diversity, democracy. So let's start with the session, and by the end of the session, you will be clear that delimitation actually expects us to prioritize one over the other between democracy and diversity. All right. So first thing first, what is delimitation? Delimitation basically means that redrawing the boundaries of a territorial constituency. Territorial constituencies that there are we may organize a big political entity into smaller territorial constituency, and in that constituencies there will be one representative from that constituency, and there will be that one representative will represent the political interest and the political aspiration of voters from that constituency. So that is delimitation, very simple. That redrawing, basically the process of fixing the limits or boundaries of a constituency. This is performed by an organization which is Delimitation Commission. It is also referred as Boundary Commission. Okay, it's a very independent and a powerful institution. We'll come back to it again, but before that, let's move on to the next question, and that is, why do we need delimitation? Now, the answer to this question basically lies in the nature of our polity. Indian Constitution provides a democratic polity. Democratic polity means that the most essential element of democratic polity is the political equality. Means one person, one vote, one value. Means that every person has right to represent its political interest in an equal manner. Politically, there is no one superior, no one is inferior. Either it is man, woman, rich, poor. So there is a lot of diversity in this country, but a person from rural area or person from urban area, a person who pay tax, a person who does not pay tax. The point is that despite of all the differences and diversity in our country when it comes to political decision making, everyone will be treated as equal. That is the essence of democracy. Every MP should represent equal number of people as practically as possible. Now, why this as practically as possible? Because all the time there is a lot of movement. Like the second thing is dynamic demography. Means demography is never going to or has never been a static phenomenon. The demographic is a very dynamic phenomenon. People basically because of birth rate, mortality rate, because of this migration reason, what we get to witness different trend and pattern of demography in different part of our country. Let's take for an example, we have witnessed after independence a lot of migration from rural areas to urban areas. And because of this migration, let's say in rural areas, you will find the area of Lok Sabha constituency will be much more as compared to the area of a Lok Sabha constituency in a city, let's say Bengaluru, Delhi or Mumbai. Why? Because in smaller area, in these cities, large number of population reside. That number of population basically reside in much bigger region or much bigger area in the rural areas. All right, so that's why we need to perform this delimitation, so that despite of this dynamics of demography, we are able to ensure the political equality for everyone in this country. Now, our constitution basically provide this Article 82. In this Article 82, clear provisions with respect to delimitations are mentioned. This is the bare text of the Article 82, but let me show you a simpler version of what is written in the Article 82. So Article 82 basically expect that after every census, 2 activities must be performed. What are those? Redrawing of the Lok Sabha constituencies in every state and the readjustment of total number of seats in the Lok Sabha. So basically these are 2 different but mutually related tasks. When we do this, eventually we will have to perform this, right? Because when you are redrawing the Lok Sabha constituencies everywhere, and if the population is growing, of course you will left out with some people for whom you will need a new Lok Sabha constituencies, right? Otherwise, you will not be able to ensure this one person, one vote, one value. And that's why we need this. Now, we need to perform these 2 tasks in order to ensure one goal. And that goal is that every Lok Sabha MP should represent equal number of people in the highest political institution, that is the parliament. In other words, you can say that value of the vote of every citizen remains equal across the country as practically possible. So basically what happened that redrawing the boundary of every constituency lead to change in the total number of constituencies in a state, and this eventually lead to change in the total seats of MPs in Lok Sabha. Now, delimitation in India has been done 4 times. Delimitation commissions have been constituted 4 times, once in 52, 63, 1973 and 2002. And they basically worked over this data set which we got after the census. Now, the constitution for Lok Sabha, the provision is in the 82, Article 82, but for state legislative assembly, the same provisions are found in Article 170, and both the articles empower parliament to enact a law. in this law, all the provisions with respect to delimitation commission will be mentioned, like how many members can be there, who is eligible to be a member of that, and eventually it will be the president who will appoint the members in the delimitation commission. Understand that delimitation commission is a temporary commission, unlike UPSC or election commission, like this. This is a temporary commission, means like once it is constituted by president under the act passed by parliament, then this commission provides certain recommendation. Those recommendations cannot be questioned for its constitutionality or for any other thing in any court of law, and these recommendations are presented in front of the house or assembly, which is going to be affected by the suggestions of the delimitation commission. So basically these provisions make delimitation commission a very powerful and a very independent body. Now, so far in our country, as I told you earlier, 4 delimitation commissions have been constituted. Delimitation commission in 52, 62, 72. So like these are the act, and on the basis of these act, the commissions were constituted. First 3 commissions basically perform both the task. One is redrawing the every constituency, another is reallocating the Lok Sabha seat for every state depending upon the demographic changes. But 2002-1, I mean the delimitation commission constituted under this act only performed the delimitation exercise partly. Partly means that they simply redrew the boundaries for Lok Sabha constituencies in the state, but they did not change the total number of Lok Sabha seat allocated to a particular state. By 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act in 1976, government imposed a freeze on the delimitation exercise. And initially they imposed the freeze until the year 2000, but then in 2001, through this Constitutional Amendment Act, 84th, just double of 42nd, right? You can remember this way. So through 84th CAA, basically they extended the freeze till the year 2026. So it is, right now the situation is that only after 2026, whenever we get a census, then delimitation exercise will be performed, all right? But in year 2003, they basically allowed a partial delimitation through the establishment of this, through the basically passing of this law, Delimitation Act 2002, and they allowed the partial delimitation, and in that they allowed redrawing of constituencies boundary based on 2001 census data, but without changing the total Lok Sabha constituencies or total Lok Sabha seats across the country, and even today it is based on the 1971 data. So what is the reality? The reality is that if we look at the total number of seats which are given to a particular state, that is based on the 1971 data. So UP get 80 seats, West Bengal get 42 seats, Tamil Nadu get 39, and Kerala get 20. This number of seat is based on the 1971 data when the population was this, and if you look at the ratio of population per seat, then it is very close to each other. So basically it's not same, but it's very similar. It's roughly 1 million people per Lok Sabha seat. So you can say that after 1970s delimitation commission's recommendation, everywhere across the country, it was 1 Lok Sabha MP represent approximately 1 million people. But over a course of period, that reality has changed because of this 1976 freeze over delimitation exercise. So what has happened? So the current political dilemma stem from the freeze imposed in 76, which decoupled means which segregated or separated political representation from population growth of a region. So means if people are growing in some region, they will not be receiving equivalent political representation in the parliament. Now, there is something very important to note. This 76 freeze was imposed by union government not because there was a massive demand for it. It was not the case that states or the political parties in South, they were demanding a freeze like this. Rather, it was done by union government to basically implement, rather ensure the successful implementation of one of their policy with respect to family planning. So government, in order to incentivize the states who are performing better over population control measures, in order to ensure that they are not penalized because of this population growth, their political representation and their political voice is not undermined, the union government imposed this 1976 freeze. Why am I highlighting this as an important fact? Because currently it is no longer the choice of union government. Rather, government at the union level is receiving a very strong opposition from the government in the southern states, and particularly some of the political parties. They are very much rigid with respect to undoing the freeze which was imposed in 1976. In 2001, the freeze was only extended. So it was to be lifted in the year 2000, but Atal Bihari Vajpayee government brought this Amendment Act to basically extend or postpone this delimitation exercise until the 2026. These were their arguments. They felt that interstate discrepancies in the population growth rate is still too wide, and we need it to be stabilized before we can perform it. All right. Now, why this delimitation again back in news and is part of the political discussion everywhere? Because basically we have got this new parliament building and the year 2026 is just around. So in this new Lok Sabha building, we have got now 888 seats, 888. What does it mean? It basically means that the maximum strength, okay, maximum strength. It means the maximum number of MPs who can sit in this new Lok Sabha building. By the way, currently this maximum strength is at 552, but it has been increased to 888. That's why the speculations are there that probably government is planning something and they will be implementing this delimitation exercise. Now, what is the dilemma? The dilemma which I told you in the beginning, that delimitation dilemma is actually a dilemma between democracy and diversity. So what are the two sides of argument? One side of argument is that if you maximize political equality, the more populous region become more dominant politically in the parliament, right? But the other side of the argument is that if you want to preserve cultural diversity, you intentionally deviate from equal representation, which is the base of any political democracy or political equality. By the way, this dilemma can also be extended to an equal manifestation, and which is democracy versus federalism. Democracy versus federalism. So like there is a federalism argument from the southern state. They say that they feel they are being penalized for their successful governance and implementation of a national policy, leading to their dilution of their political voice in the federal structure. While there is a democracy-laden argument, and that is the critics of this side argue that the current system violates the principle of one person, one vote, one value. And if so, basically it is up to us to figure out a balance between federal equity as well as democratic values, right? So far what I have provided you, I have provided all the factual information with respect to delimitation. Why do we need delimitation exercise, and why we imposed a freeze over delimitation exercise, and what is the current dilemma in front of us. At this point, I will provide you 3 questions. One MCQ, another mains-oriented question, and there is one interview oriented question also, because like right now interview season is all around, right? So I will request you guys to basically respond to these three questions. One is this MCQ, another is this mains question, and the interview question. So please provide your responses in the comment section of this video. This particular question you can answer on the basis of the content which I have discussed in this video. And for these questions, basically, I have provided the argument. It is now up to you how you shape your argument and how you conclude your answer. Of course, we will be helping you in the comment section. So first, I will expect you to come up with your opinion, again, from UPSC examination point of view, not like a member of a political party. Try to deal with this dilemma from the UPSC aspirant point of view, and we will basically help you, guide you in the comment section. And in case you want to reach out to me, you can send your responses or your doubt, your opinions basically over my email ID also. All right. So with this, I conclude this video. And here, before like I end it, let me tell you one more tricky element here. So, you know, like delimitation so far I have talked about, and in the constitution also, delimitation is discussed only for Lok Sabha and state legislative assembly, means Vidhan Sabha. But what about Rajya Sabha? And what about Vidhan Parishad? I will expect a response from the viewers in the comment section. Of course, if you find any difficulty, I will be providing the answers there in the comment section also. All right. So with that, thank you very much for listening me, and wish you all the best. Happy learning. Thank you.